Okay, so now we need to rearrange how we have wired these up. So our native click event handler and our native keyboard event handler, right? Those need to be put in their respective places. Since we have function hoisting, this function actually it'll escape this scope and it'll end up all the way at the, like right over here. It'll get hoisted there. But yeah, so we're gonna take our key press or key release, and that's where we are going to put our native native keyboard event handler. Now we could say native keyboard event handler or key press or key release or something like that, but we already chose this name in an earlier project, so let's just kind of stick to that because this name is good enough, and there's some value in keeping the exact same name between code bases. So when I'm like referencing other code and other code bases, I can kind of see the relationship, like the evolutionary tree of my code bases in a way. Okay, so we got our native, and that is wrong. That's also in the keyboard section. We want to be up here. So the keyboard handler, and what we could also do is we could you know, if we really wanted to, we could well, I don't know. Sure, why not? This is the wrong. We could put this right here. Right, we could I don't know. Right, we could do something like that. So that way we can see that connection as well. So we have our native clip, and then our, right, and we could do the same thing here, right? So with our key press or key release, we could make a note in native. Right, we could do that. That looks a little bit better. Right, so just like okay, so this native handler calls the pull events click, and this native handler will then call this. So that way we can kind of see the indirection in the comments rather. Yeah, sure, why not? That is ugly. God, I can't make up my mind here. Okay. Sure, yeah, no, that's not the same. Taking up more room, changing things around. Okay, native, and the click handler. Okay, so now within here, right, this will be, after we do our clickety click, right, we can then do our internal handler that takes the whittled down data, takes that whittled down global event object. And then the same thing for our native keyboard event handler. That can also take our whittled down object. So takes the global event object, and this also takes the global event object. Okay, so now that we have that in place, and I'm gonna, now that we have this, you know, oh boy, that's a mouthful. Can we fit this all? Okay, well that's unnecessary. That doesn't give us really much extra information. Yeah, just, eh. Okay, so that's kind of ugly, but I don't want to go over my column limit. So, okay, so we have this, right? And we don't really need that. That is also unnecessary. So just letting us know that these are the functions that got called. And the thing that says clickety-click, why not be a little bit more specific? So this will tell us that it's the native handler. And if we are in here, oh, and we don't have anything telling us that it's that. Yeah, I'm not certain where we want this, but we can just put it here. Console.log. Okay, and for consistency, we should, if we're going to do that at the top of the function, we should also do it at the top of the function in the other handler. There is no top or bottom within these functions because they only have one statement. So the top is the bottom, and the bottom is the top, and the middle is also the top, and the middle is the bottom, right? That was a whole lot of nothing to describe that. Okay, yeah, so this looks pretty good. Now we gotta fix this right here. Because the canvas is inside of our canvas adapter, or not our canvas adapter, but our graphics adapter. And the other thing we need to fix is, like, we've indented a little bit deeper than it was. The source material we copy-pasted from has a different indentation level. So we're going to fix that up. Another thing is, by maintaining a very strict column limit, I can see fairly quickly where code that's like under construction is, because I save the cleaning up till last usually. Native event. So native event is defined by JavaScript. So I don't need to make a class for that. Can X, can Y, global event. The global event object, however, that does not exist, so we need to make that exist. Let's address this first. So what I'm going to do is so I know that the first part here is called, or the second part, I guess, is now called Canvas HTML for Canvas HTML. I know it is in the global classes container. It's inside of the graphics adapter. So global classes.graphics adapt, right? And, like, you know, if we wanted to, right? So this is going past our limit. So if we want to write this, we could write it like this, which takes up a lot more vertical space. But since it's taking up that extra vertical space, we can make the best of that by annotating what each one of those things are, right? So this is global classes. This is the, oh, you know what? It's not this. This is wrong. So if I copy this to the clipboard and I do 2 commas, Yeah, it says it's backwards. Okay, so it's adapter and then it's graphics, right? Because I'm trying to stick with like general to specific. Okay. So adapter graphics. Or we could call it adapter graphics. I don't know. Canvas HTML5. Or actually, no, HTML. Okay, so right, we can annotate what all that is. Okay, so we have that. And the last thing we need to do is this global data.global event, right? We got them all over the place, but I guarantee it's only in this small section. It's not defined anywhere, right? So if you go loop through here, right, it's just in here. And we need to actually put that into the global data. So we know that it's called global event. We know that we have INI for init, and then it's global, and then it's data, right? And you might say, oh my god, how can you memorize all that stuff? Well, that's why I keep the variable names very short, because it reduces the mental search space and makes it easier to remember what the variables are all called. So init global data, and in here, that's probably where we should put the global event object. So we could say global event, and new glow, right? Global event object for keyboard and mouse, user input, whittled down version of right. So this global event is like a whittled down version of this native event object. And now what we need to do is we can reference our old code, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? We want to reuse code, and sometimes by code reuse I mean cutting and pasting. So we can do so this global event struct, I don't like that name because I've been using, I get why I did that, because right, I said functions are camel case, and then objects are objects variables are snake case, but I do like the constructor name to match the variable name. That seems kind of useful. But anyways, let's just take this global event struct constructor, and we'll go down to the variables, not the variables, but the struct section of the code. So here is our comments section, and in our structs section, we can just paste that in there. And I see we have a little bit of different indentation style, right? So this region, I don't want this to go, I want one level of indentation here so that it's easier to tell the start and end of these regions, right? And then right here, I can have like a dash line, indented 1 and 64 columns, right? And that'll separate the sections. And then all we got to do is, you know, -4, -4, -4, right? And that looks all right. I honestly think I have too much information in here. It's whittled down all right, right? It's just mathematical properties, but I don't know. I'm not going to change it just because it seems maybe like a little bit too much. But at the same time, it's not complete overkill. So this, right, I want to change this variable name, but I will make a note that once upon a time it was called this, right? So I use AKA for that. And I can also use this, like new, right, have an AKA for what I'm going to call it now. Right, so I can just see it here and be like, oh, it's also called this. It used to be called this in another code base, right? So, right, you know, I'm only two projects in, and I already have technical debt, but I think it's still useful to know what this used to be called, so I can easily find it in other projects. As far as the type, TYP, I believe now I am using, and I'm going to match case, because now I believe I'm using var TYP in this code base. Yeah, var TYP, var TYP, var TYP, yeah. And so the reason for that is just because I see kind of why I did it, because, everything else in here is, 3 letters, so that OCD part of me is like, line it all up. But TYP is just, it's too terse. So we're going to stick with variable type. Variable type could mean class type, struct type, object type. So we stick to var TYP. And let's go over to our documentation, where we're kind of like logging all the stuff we use. Do we have a var TYP? Yeah, so we do. If I type it in all capitals, does it give me a check mark? Yes, it does. Variable type. Do I have a long-handed one? No, I don't. Var type. Do I have something like that? No, I don't. So what we're going to do is variable type, and var type, and var type, like that. And then we'll just do that, right? So that way we have another way to find that in the future. What I would also like to do is make sure that this is documented. And no, that's something else. Okay, so var TYP means, and then var TYP means, var TYP means, and then var TYP means, and then all together now, var TYP means, and then var TYP means. So then we'll say var TYP variable TYP type for JavaScript code. And we could also say, better than that, instead of saying for JavaScript code, why don't we just say what the first file it was used in, because it's a JavaScript file, and then we can imply that it's for JavaScript first used in icog.js. Technically, we used it in the other file as well, but it was just called TYP in the other file. So the first use where I used it with this spelling is in this file, and that's just so if I want to see how it's actually used, I can actually go to a file that actually uses it. And I don't have to like do any greps or anything. It's just, I knew I probably would want to know that, so I put it there. Okay. With that, let's keep going. So do we have everything here? So we got the new global event constructor. We got a use strict here. We're declaring the variable type. We cut and pasted this, so we're assuming that it's still syntactically intact. We're going to go over to where it's used. So here's this global event. We have, hold on. Sometimes my syntax highlighting does weird things. Okay, we have this still. We have a comma between it and the next variable, comma between it and the next variable, comma between it and the next variable. So that looks pretty solid. Let's go check for global event, because it'll be in the next place that we were using it. And yeah, we can see all the locations. We're grabbing the global data .global event, and then the part where we use the specific right, because we had to change this around because we had to get access to the canvas, and that looks pretty solid as well. Okay, yeah, so I think we're about ready to give this a run and see if everything works. And we got 21 seconds on that timer, so I'm going to go over my time a little bit this time. Let's refresh, hope nothing breaks. Okay, that's good to see. Native click event handler A2JS pull events click. Nice. And our keyboard event shouldn't work yet, right? Yeah, because we didn't attach it to the correct thing. Let's take a look at the native keyboard event handler. And let's go into the old code again and search for that handler. And we see that we added it to document.add-event-listener. And yeah, yeah, so we just have to add it to the document. Did we call it document? Well, we can just try and see what happens, right? Because if document is null for some reason, nah, that shouldn't be. I mean, document is like top level. I mean, I don't think there's anything more top than that. Like, document is more top level than body. So this native handler right here, yeah, it doesn't need the canvas. The mouse handler, yes, that needs the canvas, but the keyboard handler actually needs document. Okay, so now if we go over here, that's weird. I said it wouldn't work, but when I wrote the whatever. Okay, so let's check this out. So if we refresh, okay, so that click handler is still working, and if I hit a key, that's nice. So I have a little to-do message, and then I'm echoing the event objects. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so we've made a decent amount of progress here, and we're starting to integrate the code from the previous project. I wanted a more logical stopping point. I didn't want this playlist to get so long. But the goal is to not stop until this project has the same functionality as the previous project, except we render using WebGL instead of a canvas. So hopefully a lot of this will start to be more cut and paste as we go along, because we can just start cutting and pasting more and more code from here. Or, you know, maybe we have to cut the code, but then we have to, like, slowly rework it a little bit. This big algorithm right here, the do mapping, this is going to be converted all to shader code. I know that for a fact. And then we have to somehow get access to the rectangles from within the shader code. So we still have a decent amount of work ahead for us, but we're getting there. We're getting something decent. What do we got here? We got like 900 lines of code here. We got, if we don't count the comments section, we got like 2,000. Yeah, so, okay, well, there's a big gap right here. Lines of code isn't the best metric. Oh, sorry, you can't see that. Lines of code isn't the best metric for this kind of stuff. Especially if you look at my style, there is a lot of extra space, right? Like, you know, as I'm counting lines of code, does that count? Does this comment count as lines of code? I would say this, now that I think of it, yeah, actually it kind of does, because the point of source code is to be understood by humans, right? It needs to, well, I mean, it has to fulfill both purposes. It has to be understood by humans, and it has to run on your machine, right? So this is human source code, and this is machine source code, right? Is a way to think of it. So yeah, I think that the effort put into this, I think, should count towards, you know, the comments are valuable. I wouldn't discount the comments. But yeah, we have a lot of fluff here, like a lot of extra space and whatnot. This, I don't like this. Let's get rid of that extra space. This is nicely centered, so I'll keep it like that. Yeah, but let's just keep on doing this, and you know, maybe I'll eventually change the title of this to not whatever. Yeah, also when it says whatever up in the title bar, that makes it really hard to know from the video what project this is. So let's why don't we change that right now? icog.js. I really wanted to give it a more descriptive name. Well, yeah, that sucks. So I called this icog, and that's not, that breaks the pattern of what I called everything else. Right, because we have like this. Whatever, let's not fractionate our names. Like the OCD part of me is like, God damn it, why did I do that? It's because this initially started out me following a tutorial, and then as how that usually goes, I just stuck with the tutorial code and was like, let's just keep adding to this, and that's why we are here. Alright, yeah. So I'm going to stop the video, and I think I'm done for today. Or, I don't know, I at least need a break. Okay, yeah, let's just, before I go, refresh, make absolutely sure this works. Click works, keyboard event works. Okay, that's why there's so much fluff here, because it's getting activated once for up and once for down, and the same event handler is handling that. Okay, yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna stop recording, and I don't know, maybe I'll add more code later today. I don't know. I mean, it's already 10:15, I don't know.